Happy New Year. Welcome to the first town hall of the year. We're going to do something, well, first, cell phones and other electronic devices, if you could at least put them to silent or vibrate while we have the meeting, it would be much appreciated. We're going to do something a little bit different. Format's relatively similar, but we've got a couple of special guests that are joining us today, Coach Paul Winters and the athletic director, Rob Fournier. We will feature Coach Winters and Rob Fournier for a few minutes, and then we'll go to the format with which you're familiar, which is the president will make some remarks. Then we'll take questions. We have three sources of questions. One, many of you have submitted questions, and I have those here in my coat pocket. What I'd like, though, is if people from the audience were to ask questions. So we have a handheld mic that somebody will be walking around with when the president finishes, and we invite you to ask easy questions for the president. We also have online, I have a couple of folks right here in the second row who are talking to our streaming folks. By the way, welcome to all the folks that are watching us on video stream. It's good to have you, especially on cold days like this. It must be nice and warm in your office. But we'll have questions coming in from there too. Now, we don't normally spend a lot of time at the town halls talking about athletics, but this year is a little bit different. We certainly ended 2011 on a high note in many ways because of the football team. And under Rob Fournier's leadership, we should acknowledge all of athletics because it's become a symbol really at Wayne State of dedication and of excellence. And we want that to go across the university. So we really appreciate Rob's efforts on that, particularly since Warrior athletes aren't just athletes. They are scholars and they are citizens. I'll let Rob briefly describe a little bit of that for you. And then I'll ask Rob to turn it over to Coach Winters for a little bit. So, Rob, if you could join us, please.
Thanks, Michael. Briefly, I have to tell you the distance from there to here seems really short, but I've worked in the athletic department, and to get from here up to here has been a long journey. So I appreciate the president giving us this chance to just represent athletics. I just want to tell you a couple of little things because everybody's heard about run for the national championship and all that success. But there are some things about the athletic department I think most people overlook. That little area across the lodge where there's about 400 student athletes, 31% of those student athletes have a grade point average of 3.5 or better. 60% in this past fall term had a grade point average above a 3-point, and the cumulative grade point average for all the student athletes is 3.08. So academically, every year the NCAA mandates a federal study of graduation rates. Student athletes at Wayne State graduate at a 26% higher rate than the comparable campus population, and our retention rate is 94%. In addition to that, last year, student athletes volunteered 8,249 community service hours, just helping various organizations around the city. And over the past 3 years, that number is over $25,000. So it's more than athletic success. It's representing the university in the ways that our faculty and staff expect us to represent the university. I think everybody knows that before the president started to talk about options and features available at Wayne State, he was pretty successful in the automobile industry. And I mention that because Detroit and Akron have really always been linked together. And Paul Winters is a native of Akron. And, you know, for as much success as Akron has had, it's always depended on the automobile industry, and vice versa. Detroit always depended on the rubber city to send those tires over here. And, you know, for every Ford and GM and Chrysler There was a Goodyear, a Goodrich, and a Uniroyal. And those two cities, their success has always been tied together. Well, I think it's just interesting that Paul Winters made that little trek 100 miles down the road, and since he's been here, he's really added some tread life, not just to the athletic department, but also to the entire university. I've been amazed by how many people come up to me, and I don't know who they are, and just tell me, boy, that's great, everything that's happened in the football program. But then it leads to a bigger discussion about the university. And really, that's all we ever wanted, was just to be the window to look in and see the rest of the university. A little bit of irony, Coach Winters was named the National Coach of the Year, but after the success, that we had, Akron actually came to him and offered him their job to return and be the head football coach. I don't know if you get a gift in kind for this, David, but he turned down an offer that over 5 years would have paid him $1 million more than what he would make at Wayne State. So I guess in a way, we're going to keep the assembly line running a few more years here. So it's my pleasure to introduce Paul Winters.
Here we go!
Amazing.
Epic.
Spectacular.
Surreal.
Family.
United. Remarkable.
Unbelievable.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, President Gilmour, for allowing me to come up here and speak to the group. We have a philosophy at Wayne State football: what the mind of man can conceive and believe, the mind of man can achieve. And it was our goal, and it was Rob's vision, to build a program that would, again, be the window to Wayne State University, that people would look at us and see what a great institution we have. Now, I've had people come up to me and tell us they don't know that I'm the coach, and they say, "Hey, you work at Wayne State? Wow, how about your football team?" I say, "Yeah, they did okay." I'm really proud of the dedication that our young men showed throughout the year, and what they've done, and this is a year-round activity, as well as the academic end of it is a year-round activity for them. And they work very hard, and you'd be very proud of them. The way they represented Wayne State in the national championship and in every tournament game leading to the national championship, it was something you would be proud of, because they said, the people that worked at those events said, your group of young men have such class and character, and for me, it made me proud, and you should be proud of these guys too. They're just a wonderful group of guys. I will tell you this, they told me to keep it pretty short. We've got a really good team coming back next year. We lose 20 seniors, but we have prepared these guys for their chance, and we will be worth watching. My goal, as always, since the day I walked in, is to not hear any "Go Blue" or Sparty or anything else, and have all of you attend Wayne State football and Wayne State athletics. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Now we'll hear from our other coach, and it has been a pleasure for me personally to serve under President Gilmour for the past year and a half. He is a man of brilliant insight, and under his leadership, Wayne State is focused on the right things, and we are, as he likes to say, moving ahead. So let me introduce, please, the 11th President of Wayne State University, Allan Gilmour.
Thanks, Michael, and good afternoon, everyone. We've got a lot to be proud of in our football world and our athletics world, haven't we? And you know, the coach gave a nice brief set of comments, and I thought, what am I going to say? And although it isn't exactly appropriate, I was reminded as I sat there of Babe Ruth's compensation being compared with Herbert Hoover's back in the Depression. And Babe Ruth got more money than the President of the United States. Of course, those differences are a lot bigger than they were then. And a reporter, and the coach and I were talking about the fun of dealing with reporters, said to Babe Ruth, "You made more money than the President of the United States," to which he said, "Yes, I had a better year." And I have the impression that Paul Winters had a better year than I had a better year. Right? And so I hope he has a very good year coming up. And with the involvement of everyone here, I hope we have a good year also. Let me start by saying thank you. Thank you to everyone in this university. I've been here now 17 months. Ron Brown is a veteran. He's been here 18. Not that we count or anything like that. We are like the students, you know. Remember when I went to prep school and college, I marked off the days until vacation. I won't say Ron and I do that, but you can come to your own conclusions. And I should say Happy New Year. And isn't it only 3 weeks ago? Oh, Lord save us, right. Seems like a long time ago and lots going on. I did not expect to be making any comments on football 17 months ago. I had read nothing anywhere about Wayne State athletics. Isn't it fun? And it's fun to recognize what Rob and Paul have done, but it's fun to see what the players do and how they grow the time that they're under the guidance of Paul. And then they open up, as both Paul and Rob said, horizons that we never even thought of. So what do people talk to me about these days? Football. That's a lot better than talking about tuition. We had, in the last 18 months, plenty of challenges, but I think we've had plenty of successes. We made progress in a good number of areas. We worked hard, and I think, particularly with football, we ended last year on a high note, and we are, to use the phrase, moving ahead. And I want to give the impression, first of all, that I pay attention to what's going on, maybe a little exaggeration, and I want to give the impression that we're going to do something about what we know. And so in today's online South End, there's an article about a graduate student in arts who has an exhibit in community arts on the Yamasaki work. And in that article talks about the people in community arts who look out on McGregor and what is called the reflecting pond, except dirt doesn't reflect well. And so I'm here to report and to announce that as soon as we get board approval, which will be in the next month or two, and I'm not suggesting they're not going to give the approval, we will fix that in 2012. And so that we will introduce in this pond water, as well as other things. Now, this isn't the only thing we have to do, but it is emblematic, I think, of the progress and the moving ahead that we want to accomplish. Some other examples. You've seen these posters around, professors who do. I call them the elevator professors because I see the posters in the elevator in FAB. And their stories and their work are extraordinary. And I've had dinner with most of them. We'll have dinner with the remainder of this semester, because they provide the best examples of faculty excellence. And the faculty in this place are the foundation of our success. I, of course, tell the board it's me, but it's not. It is what the faculty do each and every day in teaching, in research, in service to the university, in service outside the university. And I'm delighted that we recognize these people. Jerry Koo, for example, is leading a team of Wayne State students from the College of Engineering. they're participating on a program called EcoCar 2, Plugging into the Future. It's a one-of-a-kind program established by the Department of Energy and General Motors. It's another one of those car companies there, and it's great. Professor Duda in pharmaceutical sciences in the Applebaum College is leading research efforts to develop new treatment options to slow the progression of Parkinson's disease. Professor Heng, who's an associate professor in the Center for Molecular Medicine and Genetics, was awarded $900,000 from the Department of Defense to try to determine whether there's any common genetic link among Gulf War patients. Just a few of the examples. And I can't tell you how proud we are of these. Do they get the visibility they should, the recognition they should? No, they don't. That's one of the reasons I want to mention them today. And there's so many more. Thank you, faculty members, all through this university, for what you are doing. If I had to say what was in store for 2012, I would say we have plenty to do. There will be plenty of problems. I learned in my latter career at Ford, you're supposed to describe those as opportunities. Sometimes the opportunities are well hidden, I noticed that, because disguised as problems. But a couple of things. I think the economy in Michigan is getting a little bit better. And I was in Lansing yesterday afternoon and yesterday evening, and I think there's a view that Michigan, led by the auto industry, and I'm not suggesting that's the auto industry's job, but volume in the auto industry is picking up. Sales have increased from about 10 million 3 or 4 years ago. This is imports, domestics, wherever they're made, sold at retail in this country. Last year was 12.8 million. So, round numbers, 25, 30% increase. And another million units or so this year. So the economy is getting better. We, however, need to be cautious because we have known and learned over decades now the auto industry is cyclical, and what goes up can come down, because that 10 million followed 17 million. That was the peak, 17 million, and sales went from 17 million a year to 10 million in not many years. The state budget will be announced, I think it's the 8th or 9th of February. I expect no further cut in our state appropriation, but I don't know that we'll see any increase either. Well, it's better than a cut, better than a poke in the eye, I guess. But even with no cut, our costs will go up because costs go up in a place like this. So we'll have to balance how to manage cost control, tuition, all of the pieces that go to make up that equation. As you know from reading, higher education is under intense scrutiny these days. In my next life, I'm going to be a critic because apparently there's big opportunity and you don't have to know much. So I'm ready. And we see higher education being poked at over and over again. But on the whole, it comes down to tuition is too high. And I'm sure if we took a poll of the students, they would agree with that. And if we took a poll of their parents and friends, they would agree with it also. And it's going to be something that's going to get a lot of attention, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later in today's meeting. But 17 months after I came, 18 months after Ron came, we're moving ahead. He and I found a lot to do in this place. Rick Nork, when he came, found a lot to do. And other people have found a lot to do. But at least the to-do list is different from what it was 17 or 18 months ago as we make progress. Evidence of moving ahead. First, and probably the most important, with Ron's leadership, we've hired about 130 new faculty members in the time that he has been here. They're the foundation of our success, of any university's success. And our success right now, someone's got to teach those horses and do that research, and in the long run, because they build on the intellectual capacity and capability of this university. We've seen student success. Our retention rate, this is the one that goes from freshman to sophomore, was as low as 69%, is now 77%. It's in the middle of Michigan universities. It's not way down at the bottom. Now, it's been at 77% for a couple of years. Our task, keep moving it up, keep moving it up. Objective, it's either 82 or 83, which would place us about at the bottom of the top quarter of Michigan's 15 universities, and I think that's a pretty good place for us to be. Graduation rates, you've read more about that than you wish, and I have too. The graduation rates, incidentally, are based on 6 years. And you say, why 6 years? Because that is a federal measure and that is a state measure. And I'm not in charge of either of those. So we will be measured on 6-year graduation rates. Now, we know that we have students who take longer than that. At graduation in December, a lady crossed the stage so I could shake her hand and be pleased that she graduated. She said, I'm 63 years old, getting a bachelor's degree. I was a dropout for 30 years while I grew a family and did other things. And I'm glad to be back and graduating. And I was glad that she was back and graduating. We need everybody of that kind or any other kind that can succeed in this university. But it's so exciting. You know, when we talk about our graduation rate, which has been, the number we have mentioned is 31%, and it's the lowest in the state of Michigan, and of peers that we measure against University of Chicago at Illinois, Chicago, excuse me, University of Buffalo, Cincinnati, and so forth, it's the lowest among those also. It's going to go down before it goes up, because when you look at the people we have enrolled and the characteristics and the dropout rates and so forth, obviously it's going to go down. But it will, over time, start to go up. But when people say that's a terribly low rate, give them this number. That if you average over the last 5 years and you measured 10 years rather than 6, the 10-year graduation rate is 11 percentage points higher. And half of that, almost half of that, occurs in the first year. In other words, if we measured the 7th year graduation rate, it would be 5 percentage points higher than the 6-year. And we all know that we don't admit a whole bunch of students here who can graduate in 4 years or 3.5, as people think they want to accelerate. That's not the kind of students we have. That's not the kind of family background. That's not the kind of financial wherewithal they have, even with financial aid or Pell Grants or whatever. So we'll be under the gun, but we feel good that we're making progress. Now, the first thing we did on this was review retention plans. And Ron found a whole bunch of good work had been done already. And what he did was pull all those things together and make them happen. And so we're underway in retention. Now, I'm not going to spend any more time talking about retention because we've used this meeting and others to do that, to talk about retention and the programs of advising, the programs of counseling, the programs of communities of learning, of math help, English help, all those kinds of things to help students get through here. But beyond that, we've had a disconnect between some of the students we have admitted and the academic standards of this university. It takes hard work to get a degree from this university. It is not an easy place. And not everyone is capable, nor should they be capable, of getting a degree from here. We have no intention of lowering our academic standards. If we do that, we would change our mission. We would devalue the degrees and diplomas that we've granted in the past. And we would cast some question about what the person accomplished when he or she was here. I can tell you from my Ford experience, we would look at endless applications, and I spent a good percentage of my life doing such a thing. And you would look at certain places and you would not care what grade they got because you knew that the quality of the education there wasn't very good. We don't want to be in that position. We want to be a first-rate university. That's where we are, and that's where we intend to stay. And it's our responsibility to be there. But at the same time, we need to understand who can succeed here and who can't. And we want every person who can get here, who can succeed, to be here. Some people say we want to make this an exclusive place. Yeah, we do. We want to be exclusive of the good students who can succeed. But our doors are open, and our doors are open also to the people who couldn't get in other places. And our doors are open to the people who need that extra help, because that's what we're here for in the retention programs and some other programs that I'll be talking about as we go through this. Ron set up a committee, chaired by him and Jerry Herron, that put together a set of excellent recommendations on admissions guidelines. And you've read about some of those in the paper, unfavorably in general. So my job today is to be the objective reporter and tell you what I think the facts really are. First, the recommendations are not the result of pressure from the state on graduation rates, or now from the federal government, which is increasing its intensity, the intensive look, at Pell Grant students. In other words, if you don't get pretty good grades, they will cut off the grant. And so we're seeing more pressure from the state. They're going to measure results, more pressure from the feds. But this pressure that we're talking about is internally generated, because this is the kind of university we want, and because it's the right thing for students. Our job is not to admit people who cannot succeed here. Our job is to admit those that can and do a bang-up job while they're here. And we hope when they're rich and prosperous alumni to have the money come back. This place will be a university of opportunity. When we admit students who can't make it, we are not doing what we are supposed to do. And we are cheating them because they're investing time and money and then not being able to succeed. And so it's our job to be sure that isn't going to happen. So what's in this report anyway? First of all, a new approach to evaluating applications. Each one of them has gone through carefully by our admissions people. Yep, we look at the ACT and the GPA, but that's inadequate. No, I shouldn't say it's inadequate. If someone is super in all those things, the person has a pretty darn good chance of being admitted. But the difficulty in an admissions office and making these decisions is not with the superstars. We can all do that work. It doesn't take any genius at all to admit the geniuses. It's the ones that are on the margin, and I use the word margin not in the negative sense, but in the positive sense. Which ones can succeed here? So we're going to do what's called a holistic evaluation, which I don't really know what it means, but it sounds good. We will ask some students to write an essay to supplement their application. We will ask some of them to give more evidence as to what happened during their high school career. Not only in school, but outside school, family situations, work, whatever they may have been. We'll have some come in from interviews. And so at the end of the process, all of our applicants will have one of three outcomes. Number one, unconditional admittance. Please come, we're ready for business. Number two, special admission. And let me come back to that in a second. Or three, referral to an alternative pathway, community college, vocational school, something like that. And you say, that's not very good for those people. And I would counter, oh, yes, it is. First of all, community college is an ideal place for a fairly substantial percentage of young people, whether they're in metropolitan Detroit or anywhere else in the U.S. Easier academically, and I don't mean these are easy places, but it's easier to make that academic transition. Closer to home, may live at home, lower cost, they cost a lot less than a place like this. So that's a good thing to think about. And incidentally, our transfers to community college this past fall were up 8% from a year ago, the highest level we ever had. And that's exactly what we want to be doing. Second, vocational schools. You say, well, that's not very good. Who wants to do that? Someone gave me an interesting number last week, and every lawyer in the room will be upset about it. The top quarter of auto technicians make more money than the bottom quarter of lawyers in this country. And you say, well, I thought you built such good cars they didn't need to be fixed. Well, we won't get into that, but we must, with people who have different talents, want to work with our hands, to use the old description, we must reach out to them and say, hey, we think this is what you should be doing. There was a Columbia professor whose name I can't remember, 50 or 60 years ago, who thought we were admitting, not we, Wayne State, but academia was bringing in far too many PhDs and wasn't paying enough attention to vocational studies, and he pointed to plumbing. And he said, if you continue to do that, you'll have both leaky theories and leaky pipes. And think about that. We will. So we will reach out and get everybody in here who can. Now let's go back to special admission, the middle category. First of all, we will introduce this coming summer what is called a summer bridge. And students will live in our residence halls and be fed in our residence halls for 5 days a week and take courses in math, English, and have coaching on success and personal attributes like that. If they pass those courses with a C or better, in the fall they're admitted. So we give them that extra step up. Now, we follow this also with a prescribed curriculum for the next 2 years, so they're focused. You know, if I were 18 or 19 or 20 years old and I looked at that big fat catalog, I certainly can't handle it online, so I got one in the office that's the big fat thing. How in hell do I know what to select? So we'll help. And the advisors will be doing the helping. Ron has already planned for more advisors in the retention side of this, and so we'll have them involved in doing this. Also, there will be a fall bridge for those who don't apply soon enough for the one in the summer. Obviously can't live in the dormitories, but other than that, the program is similar. We're intensifying our recruiting efforts in Detroit and the surrounding suburbs to ensure our diversity. African Americans, yes. Arab Americans, yes. Hispanics, yes. And any other group we can think of, yes. This place has excess capacity. I'm not referring now to some of the graduate schools, the professional schools, well, that isn't true, but I'm thinking about undergraduates. We can take more undergraduates than we have. This is not a zero-sum game. So if I get in, it doesn't mean that you don't get in. We can take every person who is qualified to come to this university on an undergraduate basis. So we're discussing these recommendations with members of the community, a couple of 3 meetings scheduled already, well, more than that, just 2 or 3 that I'm involved in, but other people are doing it as well, and with the board on the 1st of February. So this is what we've got going on here. Now, another area. Remember the Wayne Way? I'm doing my best to hope you forget it. Because it was code, for those who don't know, for lousy service by inept people who didn't care and things like this. Those things are changing. The first thing we did, other than blast it, was to hire an outfit called Huron Consulting Group, who came here about a year ago. And they have reviewed each of our administrative areas for efficiency and effectiveness. Work not all done, but largely done, although you'll see them around for some time yet in certain areas. Finance and accounting, HR, facilities and maintenance, IT, admissions, financial aid, purchasing. Some places we're in pretty good shape. Some places we won't describe the shape we're in. There is a bottom line to this as well. Not only the quality of service, but the money. On an ongoing basis, after all the things, all their recommendations that we're picking up, and almost all of them we are, when they're all instituted and implemented, we'll save about $20 million a year from where we were before. So we'll be able to say that we are an efficient place, an effective place. Now, one has just blown up, I'm sorry to report. I didn't know about this until recently. I was there at the dedication. That's what presidents do. In fact, I describe my job largely as talking and eating. And you can see, at least on one of them, I've succeeded in the eating part. We opened the Student Services Center last October 1st, as I recall, or 2nd, sometime there. But we had a little blow-up at the end of the year, and I apologize for people who were victims of that blow-up. We are understanding now what happened, and we'll fix it so that things don't happen again. We did not introduce these new things to have them not work, and so we expect to make progress there right now. Next subject, research over the last year. Yes, we are a research university. Yes, we're in the top 100 of the 4,600 colleges and universities in this country. Yes, we're in the URC along with the University of Michigan and Michigan State. And yes, I guess the 100 was the Carnegie ranking. So this isn't by ourselves. This is by the Carnegie Institute in New York. We spend more than $250 million a year on research. And yes, and if you haven't heard it, I'm announcing it. If you have heard it, I'm correcting the rumors and so forth. We've applied for state money to construct a new medical research building. You know, the School of Medicine's modernity, to use that word, of research facilities is awful. 89% of them are 25 years of age or older. And you know what goes on in scientific research these days, computer research and all those things, where as soon as you buy your device, it's out of date. Well, that happens to labs as well, perhaps not as quickly. So we will build, if we get state money, which I'll come to in a second, a $90 million facility on the site of the old Cadillac dealership between Woodward and Cass, north of here. Now, build means we're not going to tear down the old Cadillac building because it's an Albert Kahn building. That means it's famous, but also means it's well constructed. Nice big thick walls and thick floors and things like that that you need in scientific research. In what was the used car lot, we will build an added structure of 75,000 square feet, plus or minus. I looked at Jim Sears to correct my wrong numbers. South of there is a building called American Beauty something. The beauty part escapes me. It will be torn down, and it will be made a parking lot, and a good-looking parking lot, and with the hope down the road, and I won't be specific on time because the timing of this because it can't be, that Henry Ford Health System will build a research building there also. And so that the research they're doing in One Ford Place, which is their headquarters building, right up here off whatever this is, second or third, between them, I guess, will be very close to that building, and that building obviously will be tied physically to our building. We need $30 million from the state to do this project. The other $60 million is going to come from David Ripple, either personally or otherwise. The governor told me last week that he expected that we would get the $30 million from the state for that building. So that is good news. Now you say, all you're doing is building buildings. And I have read some of the student comments that says, if you didn't build so much, you wouldn't charge so much. First of all, this is not going to be paid for by tuition money. But second, we're doing away with another building. If you follow our long stream of analysis and discussion, we will vacate space where the medical school is now. We'll fill that space with people who are now in the building called Prentice, or for some of you, the Michigan Cancer Foundation building, which was developed with the best of technology in its time. All of the air ducts were filled with asbestos because we didn't want fire to spread through those air ducts, and thus far it hasn't. But asbestos isn't too good there, so that building sooner or later will be vacated as we go through this long process. So that's what's going on there. Oh, one other thing in research. We've got down at Hutzel Hospital an activity that we run. It's on DMC's territory, but we run it, called the Parentology Research Branch. It is a branch of the National Institutes of Health on infant health and mother's health. And you probably have seen in the last 2 or 3 or 4 months the work done there on a breakthrough study that will greatly reduce premature births. Worldwide application. In certain instances, premature births are reduced by 45%. And the treatment is available over the counter and doesn't cost much, so this isn't rocket science, to use that phrase. This contract expires this year. It's a 10-year contract with NIH. So our job is either to get them to extend it or to have a competition if they think that's a good idea. I needless to say don't, and renew it. Economic development. Techtown is rolling. 250 businesses there. We've trained 2,200 potential entrepreneurs. Midtown is rolling. Live Midtown, as you know, sold out. Happy to report that the program will reopen by the end of this month, I think it is, but soon anyway. And open, we hope, reopening for 5 years. Problem? Lack of capacity. But you know, I can find quite a few old buildings that could be converted. So we'll see what happens on that front as we move ahead there. Office of Technology Commercialization, that bridge between business and our own research. New person to run that. And Ned Stabler has introduced a new concept called the front door. What's the front door? It is a facility, I can use that term, or an ability for outsiders to figure out who in the world do I talk to in a big place about Wayne State about X. Concierge service. And I think we have a rule that all phone calls will be returned within 48 hours. And the return call is not to say, I'll call you back in a few more days. Glad that's underway. Engaged in the community. Jerry Herron is involved in a sensational program. He's a leader of the sensational program along with Paul Anger, the head of the Free Press. And you may have seen it in the Free Press a few weeks ago in the Sunday paper. Adult illiteracy in our community, and I don't mean just Detroit or just Wayne County, I mean the whole area, is just awful. This is a program to reduce the illiteracy rate by 50% between now and the year 2020. I described the ongoing dialogue with members of the community on subjects like student success, and I'm happy to introduce the most recent addition to our group. Patrick Lindsay, sitting right here, is our new VP of Government and Community Affairs. He's been here ever since the second day or third day, whichever it was, of January. Welcome, Patrick. Patrick came to us from Focus Hope. You all know about Focus Hope. He was the head of the external part of Focus Hope, which means he tried to raise money for them and keep everyone happy. If he does the same here, I'll be happy too. Before that, he worked for Chrysler. So I've had to mention both GM and Chrysler in this discussion, which is hard to do. Right. Community service by kids in the Honors College, medical students operating a clinic for uninsured patients, a student in the School of Social Work, running a nonprofit called Pay It Forward. It helps place unemployed residents in internships with local social service organizations. Our athletes, we've already talked about this. Please correct me if I don't say this correctly, but it's such a good exaggeration, I hope it's right. Our athletes did more community service in that time that Rob talked about than all of the other schools' students in our league combined. That is darn good. So there's a lot going on. We're moving ahead. We need to stay focused to maintain this momentum. But we've got to add to our work. Priorities for this year, and I just discussed this with the Policy Committee of the Academic Senate, just getting started on 4 added starters. Maybe they're not all added, but at least they're intensified. The first one is added. What's the future of higher education? What is this business about tuition being so high and our inability to bring down costs? And I don't say that in a critical sense at all. I don't want to go to the place that's the cheapest. I don't want to go to the place that's got the fewest faculty, paid the least, with the least background. These things cost money. How are we going to handle that? What are we going to do about online? I don't know whether it's a fad or something we don't really need to pay attention to. Those are just a couple of the issues as we think about what we should be doing. Student success. We've already talked about that. I just want to add one point. Development of the faculty is key in this. I don't think, and I think Ron and I are in agreement on this, we haven't done a terribly good job of faculty development. And I don't mean that by that sabbaticals, which are key, obviously, but beyond that. How to? How does pedagogy change? How does research change? What can I be doing that's different? We've got to develop a sustainable revenue model. Tuition, appropriation, development, raising money from outsiders, a budgeting process. You'll hear a lot more about that this year because we've got to change, particularly in the development side, how much money we can raise. We will announce a new campaign. It will not be within the next year or so, but we will be reaching out for big sums of money. We have relatively a small endowment. We must make it bigger. We are totally reliant, I'm exaggerating a little, but not much, in our general fund on tuition and state appropriation. There's no sign that state appropriation is going up, and not many people want the tuition to go way up. How are we going to handle this? One way is through philanthropy. Not the only way, but one way. And community engagement. I struggle with the fact that it is very hard in a diverse and a decentralized university to get scale. If someone said, what would you do about problem X in Detroit? We may have odds and ends of resources, but do we have them assembled? Do we have them aggregated? I don't think so. I have no idea how to do this, but I think we need to be thinking about it. The governor said the other day, in Detroit, we're going to have task forces to handle various kinds of city issues, whether it's the city doing it or the state or whoever doing it. It doesn't make any difference. Do you have people who can help? Do we have people who know anything about running buses? Apparently the present leadership doesn't. I don't think we do. Do we know anything about how to do all sorts of city services? For example, analyze the pension obligations of the city? Maybe we do. Do we have any, et cetera, et cetera? So those are just one example of us to think about. So we're going to continue moving ahead this year, and our mission doesn't change, our values don't change, and the knowledge ethic of any great university doesn't change. We are in the knowledge business. We transfer the knowledge we have to students, and we expand that knowledge through research. And both of those are important to this kind of university. So I close then on some sort of qualitative comments, I guess. First, stay positive. You've heard me comment that we must avoid a culture of negativity. To some extent, we have a culture of victimhood. People are doing things to us. Maybe they are, for all I know, but they don't care. And so pull up our socks and get to work. This is a place, higher learning is a place, of course, of criticism, of evaluation, of looking at alternatives. But that doesn't mean it's got to be negative. It isn't a zero-sum game, to use that over again. When we're expanding knowledge, our job is not to denigrate somebody else's. It's to build on somebody else's unless they're totally wrong, which isn't often. So this is no time to abandon the critical look, which is endemic to higher education. But let's do it objectively, and let's do it optimistically. Second, communicate with the community, with each other. You know, the more we know about what's going on, the better we feel. And we've got a whole bunch of new devices we've introduced in the last year and a half that Michael and his colleagues are running today at Wayne, and this thing that comes every little while, which I didn't bring a copy with me, the shiny one with 2 pages, whatever that's called, Michael. USU, that's right. WSU, right. Blogs, but don't hesitate to ask. You know, I once had a boss, if he didn't hear from me, he concluded I was doing nothing. Sometimes that was true, but keep each other informed about what we're doing. I've had faculty dinners with the elevator faculty, as I call them. You know, I was a facilitator. The value was having them talk with each other about what they were doing because they didn't know. And I'm not saying that in a negative sense. How do I know what's going on in engineering or in fine arts or something like that when I'm tending to my own knitting? But how do we build on what we're all doing? Measure ourselves. You know, we're in the time of measurement. And some people say, well, you don't know how. How do you measure higher education? When I was head of Henry Ford Health System Board, the doctor said, you don't know how to measure us. You know something? They are measured. Because Medicare won't send money unless you're able to meet certain standards and have certain performance criteria. The same thing is going to happen in higher education. Do I know how? Heavens, no. But it's going to come. Work together. I was there last night to listen to the governor. It goes with the territory. I don't think he thought it was a big difference whether I was there or not. But he talked about, and I quote, a culture of no blame, no credit. We should do the same. Worry about our goals and achieving them, not who did what to whom. Keep our students as a top priority. If they don't pay that tuition, we'll be in bad shape. And be proud of this university and be proud of what you're doing because it is so good. This is a great faculty. This is a great research enterprise. We have a long record of community engagement, economic development. This is a place that's been called a university of opportunity, what some have called the gateway to the American dream. And that's exactly what we want it to be as we move forward. We've got talented and dedicated people, and yes, a great football team. So please share this with your friends and family. Talk about Wayne State, and doesn't football make it a lot easier to do so? Talk to kids. I was talking with an 8th grader. I thought, of course, by looking at it, he was a sophomore, but he was an 8th grader last night in Lansing, one of the state representatives' kids. Talk to those kinds of people because those are the ones we want coming here. Share your pride. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for moving this university ahead. And now we'll turn to those easy questions that Michael had.
This is that shiny thing he was talking about. That's WSU. Pick it up, read it. It's great stories. In fact, Paul, you're on the cover. first, where's the microphone, Jeff? Do we have any questions from the audience? We only have 10, 15 minutes left, but if anybody, yes, please. Yeah.
No, microphone down here.
In the
right.
very center of the entire room.
That's right. Here it comes from both sides. Yes, Professor.
Sir, in one of the first emails to campus committee, you very rightly pointed out that our priorities are students and safety. In one of the previous meetings, I asked you the questions how we can, under your able leadership, have the number of students increase from 30,000 to 40,000. Now, I have a different question. It's regarding campus safety. Today, sir, you also mentioned that we are going to have some new buildings, a new construction between main campus and the medical school. And President Aremani also created University Tower in between main campus and the medical school so that there should be more communication between this campus and medical school. But during the 30 years stay, I have been seeing that most of the robbery incidents have been happening between the main campus and the medical school, especially on the corner of where University Tower is there. It's very difficult for the students to go from engineering campus, our campus, at night from here to University Tower, and also from University Tower to the medical school. These incidents have been happening next door to the previous public safety home. My question is, sir, are there any plans, future plans, short or long term, so that either by way of surveillance or by way of additional public safety or by way of additional lighting, so that we want at least the robbery incidents in a great campus should be zero?
I'll give a good straightforward answer, which is I don't know, but there will be plans. Thank you for raising the question. What we have done through the police department, they've done it, I haven't, and you've read about this, I'm sure, about New York City, which does computer-aided analysis of where there are crimes, and then focus the police effort there as opposed to where it isn't needed. And we have a grant from the government to do that, and Chief Holt and his people do it. We will add this and see what the story is and see what we can do, because we want this place safe. It is, if we can't do that, we can't do much.
It's called CompStat. It's statistical analysis that shows us what Chief Holt would call the hot spots of crime, and we're able to often anticipate problems rather than just react to them. In addition, there is extensive video surveillance in the areas that you're talking about, and we can talk more about specific plans for those areas in between.
But if any of you have concerns, let us know about that, because this we could have done. Good, thank you. Any other questions?
If I can grab a question here, because there were I'm sorry?
Here's a customer right in the front, Eva.
Another one right in the middle of the row.
That's right.
If you knew you were asking a question, you have to sit on the end of the row.
I was wondering, I'm particularly interested in what feedback the faculty had about where they want to improve, and I don't know if maybe Provost Brown could elaborate on what the faculty are interested in getting better at.
What the faculty are interested in getting better at. You know, I think we better come back and give a more comprehensive answer than this one. But we just had a very good discussion with the policy committee of the Academic Senate, running from 12 to 1, on, number one, these 4 themes that I laid out for this year, starting with what kind of a university we want to be. But our discussion segued into how to be sure that each of the schools and colleges, then each of the departments, and then each down through to the professors and instructors were doing the right thing and doing it well. And that was the theme, which I was delighted to have that discussion, the theme of how can we be sure that we're doing as well as we possibly can, and we obviously can all do better than we're doing now. So at one of these futures, let's come back and give a better answer than that one right there. But it's a darn good question. I'll give a bad example. You will tell me you wish I'd never said this. I remember when I worked for Ford in my second career, something had gone wrong, and I said to Bill Ford, you know, at this very moment, someone in Ford Motor Company is doing something, if you knew about, you'd be mortified. How in a big, decentralized institution like this can you be sure that everyone is doing exactly what he or she should be doing? You can't. But you can set up various systems and various reviews and various incentives and encouragements to make that happen. Good question. We'll come back with a better answer than the one I just didn't give.
Wasn't bad. There were several questions online about, just to refer to the point you made about budget, layoffs. What do we anticipate from Lansing, and how will it affect us? 2 town halls ago, we were discussing a 15% cut from the state. How will whatever we anticipate affect us this time around?
Well, as I said, I expect no cut from the state. I expect a little bit of incremental money. I expect it tied to criteria that I don't know what will be, and nobody else knows what will be, because I don't think the Lansing people know what they would be, and if they did, I'm not sure the legislature would agree with them. Other than that, we have good knowledge. So we'll see in the spring how this develops. Last time when I said there wouldn't be any more layoffs, someone pulled me aside and said, you can never say that, because you never know what's going to happen. That's true, but there are no plans for any layoffs. I can't guarantee there'll never be any as long as we live, but there are no plans.
Questions from our audience? From our online group? Shy people, we have one. As it's coming up, here's a nice general one for you. What is your vision for the university as we move forward in these tough economic times?
You know, for the last 17 or 18 months, I've dodged the vision question. In fact, I said one day in the cabinet, your vision and your mission come out of the results of what you do. And I kept saying, you know, when Henry and Clara Ford started Ford Motor Company, the first question was not, what do you think the return on equity is going to be in this business? It was more likely, I wonder if someone will buy one of these damn things and send us a check so we can pay the bills. And so what we've been doing, and I particularly point to Ron and over the last 18 months, and me, and now Rick and other people involved in this, is running a fire department. We've been trying to fix things that need to be fixed. A stronger faculty, the Huron consulting work, retention, obviously, now student success, the kinds of students we should have here. But when we get all that done, what are we? This is what I tell incoming students. Number one, we are a comprehensive research university. If you want a small liberal arts college, don't come here. Number two, we're located in a metropolitan area, and everything that means. If you want sports, we got them. If you want art, we got it. If you want music, we got it. If you want some other things that aren't so good, we got those too. If you want lakes and cows and trees, and this isn't the place for you. And third, diversity is here. And this is how America will look 20 and 30 years from now, the whole of America, not just metropolitan areas, not just Detroit, with the vast array of different backgrounds that always come to a big metropolitan area. Those three things go to make up Wayne State. There's no other place like it in this state. Now, going forward, are those the right things? I think so. First of all, we are a university of place. Even in the winter, we're not going to Florida. So we're here. That's the middle point. The third point is we will reflect the diversity of all the people that we can bring to this place and value what they bring. And the final one back, are we going to be a comprehensive research university? You bet we are. So then you come to what kind of place? What do you want this place to stand for? I want it to stand for a place that is a terrific place to work and a terrific place to go to school. That's the most important things that I can think of. Now, the legislature would say, would you like to pay the bills? And yes, that'd be a good idea too. So there are a whole bunch of other things that fit in. But the real things, place to work, do all your research, do your teaching, do your administrative work, place to go to school, and again, do research, learn, enjoy each other.
I think we have time for one other question. This came from the online viewers. What is the status of creating a Department of Enrollment Management?
A Department of Enrollment Management is underway. As I understand, and Ron, please correct me if I'm incorrect on this, we have established, number one, the idea. Number two, we have started a search, and that is underway. And people say, why do you need one of those? Because the world has changed so. The old days of the admissions office, and I read the form and I set it aside and that's it, are over. Because we want as many students as possible. This is not sit back and see if the customers will come. You know, build it and they will come. Well, sometimes they don't. So it's got to be how we reach out, how we attract people. The last person to ask how to attract an 18-year-old is me. What in heaven's name would I know about doing it? Then you think of the trade-offs between tuition and financial aid. Do the right people get financial aid in this place? Not clear that they do. I don't mean it's all wrong. It's not all wrong. But we need to be very thoughtful and creative about how we do that. So we need that position.
Does anybody else have a burning question in the audience that you'd like to ask? If not, please, President Gilmour, feel free to wrap it up with any last thoughts you may have.
I don't know that I've had any thoughts, but I would say once again, thank you. It's the least used and most important phrase in a big institution of any kind, whether it's a for-profit company, a higher education institution, a hospital, or whatever. People make the difference. Yes, that new medical research building with the governor's and David's money will be really great, but it won't amount to a hill of beans unless people inside are doing great things. And so that's why I say we want this to be a great place to work. We want it to be a great place to teach, do research, do administrative work, and to come to get a good education. So thanks, and we'll see you at the next one of these.
Thank you all for coming.